So my husband and I own an Airbnb close to the beaches down in Tampa, Florida. In 2023, we bought into the dream, like a lot of people, of owning real estate and earning passive income as a way to get out of the 9-to-5 grind. I decided to document our whole journey to show you what owning an Airbnb is really like. It was a wild and crazy year, and we were so lucky to have great occupancy, wonderful guests who wrote us really nice reviews, and we made Superhost. If this sounds interesting to you, if you would please like and subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. I am so late in making this video. We've had some really exciting things personally and professionally happening, but I appreciate everyone that's been watching along the way, and so I wanted to make sure we rounded out this first year of being Airbnb hosts by looking at the total numbers. We were so lucky to have great occupancy for the property. On average, when we look at all the months, we were at a 76% occupancy, and that's spread across 12 months. So in peak months like March, I think we had like an 88% occupancy. Even with all of that great demand though, we had so many things break throughout the year. And so I was really excited to do this deep dive because I knew the numbers would probably be pretty close on whether or not we turned a profit. Let's dive into the numbers, and let's first just look at revenue. So this is without any expenses taken out. We put our profile up on Airbnb the very last week in November, so I'm not going to count that. We're going to start in December of 2022. Most of our first year was in 2023. And you can see for even the very first month, I was really shocked. I made, videos about our first couple of months on Airbnb, and for only having our profile up for like a week, we had $5,400 in bookings, which is pretty cool. And you can see that we're starting to pick up steam in January, February, March. We're starting to get into that peak season. And then March was like a game-changing month for us. I mean, $14,000 in bookings is really, really cool. March is our peak season. It's spring break. So that was a huge contributing factor, but we also learned kind of a happy little lesson. At this point in time, we only had a 2-night minimum on our profile, but just naturally, because it was spring break, we had a couple of different groups that were staying for like 5 to 8 nights. So we had these longer bookings, which also contributed to our higher revenue. And we realized, oh, okay, well, when you have longer bookings, if the demand is there to get those longer bookings, you're cutting down on cleaning fees. You don't have all these random orphan days in the start of the week that you have to discount. So it just helped us learn an important lesson on how to be more profitable. And we ended up changing our nightly minimum strategy after the month of March. I made a video on that, on how we adjusted moving forward for the rest of the year. April and May were pretty good. You can see like June and July were in the summer. That's also kind of like peak season. And so we had pretty good revenue numbers. When you get into August, we're getting into back to school time. Demand is naturally lower in the area. And then September is super low, but that's intentional. We knew it was already going to be a lower demand month based on our research. It's back to school time. People aren't coming out. It's also hurricane season, so there's quite a few storms. So we intentionally shut down our property for 2 weeks. We didn't have a whole lot of bookings that had been coming in for that month anyways. We shut down the property for 2 weeks and we redid our entire deck. And we also made some other repairs to the property, like removing a large tree that was a hazard for storm season. And then we go back into October and November, and you can once again see that revenue is kind of averaging out. Our total revenue was $103,000. And I don't want to like gloss over that. That's really, really awesome. We got the badge on our profile saying guest favorite. Based on data in the area, we're one of the top properties. So very, very thankful for that. And that's really cool. I mean, we put a lot of work into this property. And so to already have it bringing in 6 figures the very first year is pretty awesome. But we have to look at the expenses and look at this as an investment. So our revenue numbers look good, but if I have one thing to take away from our first year of being in business, it's that Airbnbs are so much more expensive to run than I thought. I think most people just assume that it's like your mortgage and maybe some utilities, but there's just so much more that goes into it. Luckily for us, we were aware of a lot of the other expenses. We did the math before we bought the place, But that's just something really important to note. That's a big part of why I am making these videos, because if you go into it with realistic expectations, then it's not as tough of a pill to swallow, but it is very expensive to run these. So our mortgage, taxes, and insurance is $3,300 a month. Utilities, and this includes electric, water, trash, and internet, is $545 on average per month. Our cleaning fees are on average a little over $1,300 a month. This is completely dependent on how many different turnovers we have, but across the year, on average, we're hosting about 8 different groups per month. And while the guest does pay this fee, that's a common question I get, Airbnb still lumps that cleaning fee into the total revenue, so I'm including it in our line of expenses. We also have a pool for this property, so we have a team that takes care of that, and then we also have a pest and a lawn service, and that's $440 a month. On average, we spent $232 a month on supplies. Now, this is mostly things like toilet paper, hand soap, shampoo. We also have a gift basket that we leave out for guests that has a few little treats just to make them feel welcome. And then this also includes any kind of purchase off of Amazon. If a beach chair was broken, any kind of towels or linens needed to be replaced, that all goes into this line item. Airbnb also has a service charge for letting us list our property on their platform. It's completely a percentage of revenue. So for us on average, that's $251 per month, which I think is very, very reasonable considering the customer base that they're bringing to us. I know that there's a lot of chatter online about not letting Airbnb have so much control over your business and having more direct bookings, which I agree, it is a little scary that your business is wrapped up in one platform. So I'm all about diversifying, but I also know from a marketing standpoint how hard it is to create a website and bring yourself customers. That's expensive in itself. So for me, $251 per month to generate this kind of revenue is very reasonable and completely worth it. I also included a line item in here for guest reimbursements and discounts. Now, on average, this was $83 a month, but we really only used it, I think, 4 times throughout the month. So it just averaged out. I look at this as kind of like a marketing, keeping guests happy budget. There were a few times where something would break or maybe an expectation just wasn't met, and a guest would ask for like $50 off their stay after the fact. And so we would end up giving that to them as a way to kind of keep them happy and, keep a bad review off the profile. There are also a couple different times where we would have to run a promotion. If we had a bunch of open dates that were approaching, we'd run a promotion through Airbnb to discount those and bring more customers in. So that's a line item. I think of it like marketing. Side note, if you're a new host, when guests ask for kind of a reimbursement back, and this is what happened in our case. This happened kind of early on, and we questioned what to do because it's like, are we getting taken advantage of? Is this going to become a regular thing? Like, how often does this happen? And every property is different. Every property is going to attract a different customer base. But at least for us, it didn't end up happening that often. So whether it really was an expectation that we didn't meet, or the guest was, maybe being a little bit too picky on the property and thinking something should be included when we never claimed that it should be, either way, I just look at this as a marketing/fun to keep the guests happy. I think that's been something that's been a big factor, our customer service mindset, that has allowed us to reach and maintain our superhost status. Overall, we had amazing guests. People are so appreciative to stay in your home. It wasn't something that got abused. So we just budget for that now. And when it does happen, it stings a little bit less because you just know you've built it into the numbers. But it is going to happen because you can't make everyone happy, and things are going to break, things are just going to occur. That's the nature of the business. We also have a line item in here for handymen, plumbers, HVAC. These aren't major repairs. This is anytime a guest said, hey, a toilet's clogged, the air conditioning's not working, a towel rack fell down. These are all these little repairs where we had to send someone out. We knew that we would have these expenses. So the fact that we spent money on this isn't a surprise. It is a little bit high for what I was expecting. And when you're trying to run a property remotely, which we are, even things like a towel rack falling off the wall, it's probably a 15-minute fix. But when you have to call a handyman out there, and a lot of them have 2-hour minimums, you're spending $200 to fix that towel rack. So this one was a little bit higher. On average, we spent about $477 per month on all those little, things that we're breaking. One big thing that's missing from this expense list is a property management fee because we self-manage our property. When we looked into it, getting a property manager for this is going to be anywhere between 8 and 15%. The fee was really, really, really high. And so right there, if you're hiring a property manager, at least for us, that would have been our profitability right there. I do think Airbnb is worth it, especially if you're self-managing, but if you're looking to just buy a property, put a property manager in, I don't know. If you own short-term rentals and you have a property manager, drop it in the comments, let me know, but this is just kind of my take on it as a new host. So on average, it's about $6,700 a month for us to run this property, which is way more than just our mortgage and utilities. So our day-to-day expenses, which is everything I just talked about, ended up being $81,000. This brings our profit to $22,000. But those were just the day-to-day expenses. We had $10,000 in major essential expenses like the hot tub and the HVAC system that had to be replaced because they're essential to running the property. And, those weren't fun to fix. When I think about the actual cash flow number, $22,000, $12,000, however you want to look at it, which I'm looking at it as $12,000 because that's money that's like coming out of our pocket. It's still good, but we also own some long-term rental properties. We have a condo in Tampa that brings us $1,000 of cash flow a month, and we hardly ever hear from that tenant. Whereas with Airbnb, if you're self-managing like we are, it's a lot of work, at least in the year one. That was our experience. There's a big learning curve. You're going to be talking to guests on nights, weekends, holidays, and things will break at the most inopportune times. So that cash flow number does feel a little low to me based on our experience with long-term rentals and the time we put into this. But we bought our Airbnb and condo at totally separate times. We have a different interest rate on the condo. That plays a very big factor into our returns. So it's a little like comparing apples to oranges. It's not a totally fair comparison. Our hope as we continue on with this is that we'll be able to increase our nightly rate, and hopefully we won't have as many things breaking. We'll get a little bit smarter with expenses, and so our profitability will continue to go up. We also have to look at this outside of cash flow. So cash flow is really fun to talk about because that's the money you can put in your pocket every single month. But we have to look at this as a total investment. So if we look at other factors outside of cash flow, we also have appreciation of the property. Now, I did some research, and in our particular area, because we're close to the beach, it's a high appreciation market. So over the last 10 years, properties on average appreciated 8%. That's on the high end, but that is what happened. The house is close to the water, so it makes sense. But that also includes the big boom that we had in 2021, 2022. So I also wanted to take a more conservative look at it. And if you look nationally, the national average is real estate's going to appreciate anywhere from 3 to 5% per year. So I wanted to look at it both ways. If we look at appreciation from the very conservative estimate of 3% per year, that's $19,000 in appreciation. If we consider that the property appreciated 8% per year, which is probably closer to what happened in our particular market, you're looking at $52,000 of appreciation. Now, while that's not money that we put in our pocket, it's still part of the overall investment. We also have the debt pay down. Now, we own this house. It's not a Airbnb arbitrage property. We own it. And so every single month when the mortgage is paid, there's a portion of that is going towards the debt pay down. Guests are staying in our place and covering our expenses. So our total debt pay down over the year was $6,000. We feel pretty good about those returns, but it's not like this one property made us wildly successful to where we were both able to quit our jobs. It's a building block for long-term wealth. Even though that total return isn't money that we can go out and spend unless we did like a cash out refi, there's still a huge tax advantage to this strategy, which to us feels like the real estate secret sauce. We don't look at cash flow quite as much. We're looking at the bigger picture. There's a book called Tax-Free Wealth. I'll link it down below. Fantastic read, and it goes into all the ins and outs of why there's so much more to real estate than just this cash flow number. A lot of people ask me if it was worth it, would I do it again, would I continue to invest in Airbnb? And overall with year one, we are really happy, but I do think you have to go into it with the right expectations. As stressful as it sometimes was, I had so much fun designing the Airbnb and talking to guests, and it was just the best feeling ever when someone really, really appreciated, loved the home, had a wonderful trip, and told us how they made good memories in the house. That was just the best feeling. I feel like I learned a whole new skill with guest relations, and a lot of the things that I was really fearful about, whether it was like things breaking or someone destroying the property, never materialized. And if something did happen, my husband and I just worked through it. So it completely increased my confidence in being able to run a business. It was also really fun to do this with my husband. He's not on camera, but he is right there in this with me. And we really complement each other on our strengths. There's no way I'd be able to do this without him. And it's been, I hate to say hobby, but yeah, for us, it's like a hobby. We have fun doing this. We've had a blast building this business, and we talk about it, and we talk about our next move. And so for us, it's really fun, and it's been wonderful to do together. I'm so thankful we have this house and I'm able to share this experience with you guys. In my 20s, I used to dream about renovating houses and investing in real estate, and now it's a reality, and I'm just over the moon. If you liked this content, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.